Law, PLLC is 100% native-owned and operated, founded by Varen Coenvioma. Their practice areas include corporate law, business transactions, finance, economic development, gaming, casino development, online gaming, real estate, environmental permitting and approvals, telecommunications, government affairs, employment and labor relations, historic preservation and cultural resources, and energy. Coenvioma Law is committed to making positive and lasting change in our communities as they support nonprofit volunteering, community activism, and employing Indian preference in hiring and vendor relations. You are now listening to the Carl and Jman Save the World podcast. I am your host, the 5-star 5-diamond chef Jman, and with me is the mutton boy to my mutton man, Carl.
Mutton boy. Man, I haven't had a mutton sandwich in such a long time.
You know what? I went to the flea market last Friday.
Yeah.
And it made me laugh because then I remembered the joke that you mentioned about the city natives about taking pictures because they get their mutton fix. But res natives don't talk about getting their mutton fixed because we're there every damn day.
Yeah. So did you do that? Did you take pictures?
You know what? I was going to, but then I forgot.
Oh, it's like, man, I love that mutton.
I missed out on some good TikTok content there.
Man, when we used to live in Tuba, we used to go down to the swamp meet, and so I used to go sell at the swamp meet every Friday. And man, I used to go around and get those the cheap toys. Remember the Mexican guys that would come over and then they would just sell those cheap toys and the cheap hardwood tools.
You would have that. It was like a Rambo set. Or something, and
yes,
like a grenade.
Yes.
The one dagger.
Yes, it's all packaged.
And a little tiny machine gun.
And I remember getting that because it was like so cheap. It was like $5, and you get like a whole arsenal of stuff. You get ninja stars, and
then there was a native one too with the
tomahawk. With the tomahawk,
and the arrows had the suction cups on the end of it, and then it came with a knife. But then that knife had like a cheetah print knife holder that came with it, but nobody played with that. You just threw that away and you just walk around with your knife.
Exactly. And I used to just chase around like village dogs with those things like that, with the plastic,
with the suction cup arrows,
with the suction cup arrows and the plastic knife.
Well, there's a reason why I lit off with Mutton Man today, and the fact that the topic today is that we're talking about Navajos again.
Yeah,
we're talking about Navajos again, but the reason why we're talking about Navajos again is to set up and try to promote for what's upcoming that we did mention in our last episode that we've been invited to do a live podcast at the Western Navajo Fair. And so we're going to do that. I believe it's next Friday, right?
Yeah, next Friday. Yeah, the 7th, I believe. 7th?
Yeah, next Friday, October 7th at 4 o'clock. But that's Navajo time.
No. 3:30.
3:30?
Yeah, 3:30 because I checked the schedule.
3:30 Navajo time.
3:30 Navajo
our time.
No, 3:30 Navajo time.
So 2:30?
So 2:30.
Holy
our
shit,
time.
It's going to be freaking hot out there.
Yeah, it is.
And it's funny because in the last episode of when we mentioned this, you said that we were opening up for Nelly or for, who was it? The other artist?
T.I. and
my high school crush. Maya. But the reality is that we're actually opening up for the drag show.
So if you see both of us in drag, we have the next showing at 4 o'clock.
If you see both of us in drag, then you'll know that we're desperate for people
for more likes.
But that's kind of the whole reason why we're talking about this. And then, we're back with this season 9. Last week's episode is doing really well.
Yeah, it is.
That we ripped off Taco Bell's marketing tactics. And so, we went away for a really, really long time and withheld everybody from Carl and Jman content. And now we're back. And so everybody's storming like Mexican pizzas are back on for sale.
Exactly. I mean, we held off of the goods and stuff like that, and everybody was getting all hungry for more content, and we said that no, you guys can't have it just yet.
No, we're taking Mexican pizzas off the menu.
We're like, no, you can't have it yet. And then we're like, oh, I'm just kidding.
We're just kidding. We're bringing it back. But I did want to mention before we get into the topic, to the main part of the topic, is that we are going to continue to do a giveaway for our Instagram once we hit 1,000 followers.
Yes, we are.
And I believe that our intern AJ said that we're like 30 followers away. So if you're not following us on our Instagrams, you can find us at Carl and Jman. Spread the word to all your friends to follow us at Carl and Jman on Instagram. And that way we can get this next giveaway up and going.
Yes. And it's going to be a good one. And this time I will be involved with it. So last time I didn't know what was going on half the time when we were doing that. And so I didn't even know because it was sponsored by us, and we're like, okay, yeah, because they were asking me, they're like, what's going to be the prizes? And I'm like, prizes
for what?
For what? They're like, your giveaway, and I'm like, we're having a giveaway? And I'm like, when did this happen?
Somebody messaged me and said, oh, cool, I won, and I was like, my exact response too was like, won what? They're like, your giveaway. Like, oh shit, oh that's right, cool, congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. Because during the dance time too, they were like, man, I just entered, and so when is that giveaway? And I'm like, what giveaway? They were like, yeah, your giveaway. And I'm like, just follow the prompts on Instagram. You'll know.
I follow the prompts on Facebook.
So I didn't even
completely wrong thing.
Yeah, this time we'll actually be involved.
But this time
with
we'll be engaged with that. But I kind of wanted to touch upon some things from our last episode because it was interesting because there was a dance over the weekend in Bakavi.
Yeah.
And then my son came home because he was out there at Bakavi with his mother and his sister. And then, he was watching all the dances. I heard there was like 6 kipot groups or something.
Yeah.
So it was like a real big saminang over there over the weekend. And then he got home. And then he was asking me all kinds of questions. He was like, Dad, how come? He was specifically asking about the Apache group. He said, Dad, how come the Apaches, how come they have a flag with them?
Yeah.
And because, I believe that I saw that they were holding an American flag.
Yeah, with
and I was thinking about it. I was like, you know what? I don't know why they have a flag because for the most part, I know that most Apache tribes went to war against the federal government.
Yeah.
And so because then during my time at SIPI, I met a lot of different natives.
Yeah.
And in fact, I met some Apaches while I was going to school there out in Albuquerque at SIPI.
Yeah.
And I remember that some of these Apaches that I had met, that even to this day, some of them refused to enlist into the military.
Yeah, acknowledge
because
the US,
they still have, I guess, a grudge, or there's still a lot of hurt feelings about what their history is with the federal government. So I started thinking about it. I was like, why are those Apaches walking around with the American flag when they're dancing in the Quezon?
That is true. I mean, like, one thing that kind of sparked my interest too was that a lot of Native Americans, yes, although the U.S. government killed most of all of our people, but yet we tend to honor like the United States flag.
And that's exactly where my mind went, because after he asked me that question, then he started asking me more questions, and he said, Dad, what does going to war or making war with mean? And I basically said that, well, it means that both sides are trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
And then he asked, well, why are the Apaches, why were they trying to kill the Pahanas?
Yeah.
And I told him it's because they were trying to kill them.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, the white people didn't like the Apaches? And it was like, well, the white people didn't like all Indians.
Yeah.
And then in just having this conversation with my 7-year-old son, it just shot back to all of our voting episodes. And it's like, if the federal government didn't like any natives, then why in the fuck do we continue
to support,
to try to assimilate and try to, I guess, integrate and be a part of a lot of what their practices are? And so that was kind of the conversation that I had with my 7-year-old last night.
Because the way that we phrase different things and stuff like that, and the way that I kind of portray like Native Americans, because yes, we do have veterans here on the Hopi Reservation, but we don't acknowledge them as a parade or as like, person of going to war or anything like that. And it's just because they did it because they were forced to do it. Some of them were forced to enlist because the U.S. government said that, hey, these guys are disposable. Let's go ahead and enlist these guys first to dwindle down the other numbers.
It's like that South Park movie where they're like tying all of the black soldiers in front of the tanks and the airplanes because then they're going to be the cushion in between the missiles and bullets for all the white soldiers.
Yes, exactly. And that's the reason why, I just don't acknowledge military or anything like that, even though we do have veterans here on the Hopi Reservation. I just don't acknowledge. I just don't see why we should, acknowledge the U.S. government for actually doing this to us, actually making us pawns for their own game. So that's the one thing. I'm pretty sure there's another argument in that, and I'm pretty sure we should have an episode about that as well too.
Oh, for sure.
But going back to the Navajos, yes, we did have war with our own people. Not our own people, our own colored skinned people,
our own indigenous
brothers and sisters. And it's, I guess, in a way, when you really look at it, it has to deal with the land issues. It has to deal with the sort of cultural issues, land disputes and whatnot. And yes, Navajos did embark on our territory, like the Hopi territory, made war with the Hopis, made war because of maybe hunger, maybe because of shelter and stuff like that. And so because Hopi did have an established village, it was because, Navajos wanted to have some sort of structure, I guess, because Navajos are a very complex group. Yeah.
Oh, you just reminded me of something in bringing the topic back to Navajos, because then my son had more questions
about the Navajos.
And he was asking, Dad, did the white people conquer us? And I said, no. Which I got to say proudly, no, the white people never conquered Hopis.
Yeah.
And he didn't. Then he asked, did they conquer the Navajos? And I said, yes, son, they did. That's why they have a treaty with the Navajos.
Yes.
And so that's kind of how that conversation went with my son last night. But I guess in particular, when you're talking about Navajos, one of the things that I really wanted to speak to is the Western Navajo Fair in particular, because that's what this is supposed to set up for us being there. And so for those people out there that don't know anything about the Navajo fairs, what's so special and grand about the Navajo fairs?
Well, you have the the Yebiche dance. Because a lot of the Navajos don't have rides or transportation to go down to Phoenix to watch these great concerts, or where T.I.'s playing, or and they these fairs are basically just sort of like the the poor man's way of
the poor man's state fair,
the
poor man's Disneyland.
The poor man's Disneyland. You go to and you ride the ride
with the native twist, because then you get to look at all the jewelry that people sell. You get to look at all of the other artwork that people sell.
It's not a Navajo fair.
You get to get sick from eating all the piñons and drink gallons and gallons of Twister's lemonade.
Exactly. And it's not a fair unless you're walking on dirt to the next ride.
And your blood starts to cauterize from all of that from all the fry bread that you eat over the weekend.
From all the meats and stuff like that, all the muttons.
Well, because, I figured that this would be a topic that you might like, because then, you're somebody that loves to talk about back from your childhood, and you used to living in Tuba City. Do you remember that when the fair time would roll around as a kid, that the excitement that you would have? Because then outside of just the carnival rides, that there were tons of other things that were involved with it. There was this huge parade that would happen throughout in Tuba City. And then I guess just to make it clear that these fairs are all over the reservation, Tuba, Window Rock, Chinle. I think that there's even one in New Mexico, Shiprock.
I think so too.
And other places. And so, maybe that's something that our guests can tell us where else that these fairs happen, in which we forgot to mention that we have a special guest. But basically, I guess I've always thought of it in this way, that the Navajo fairs were like the Navajo version of a Hopi tikive.
Yeah.
Because when us Hopis have our tikives, our dances, whether that be in the winter or summertime, that it's a big social gathering.
Yeah.
And so these Navajo fairs are similar in that they're these huge social gatherings, because in addition to a carnival, in addition to a parade, that there are these beauty pageants. They have the Miss Navajo Nation contestant pageant or whatever it's called. And then they have one for the babies. They have one for the teen.
They have rodeos.
Age group. They have rodeos. And you mentioned there's a cultural component.
Mutton eating contests. Mutton eating contest. See how much mutton you can stuff in your mouth.
And I guess the tuba one in particular, I'd like to think as an outsider to the Navajo stuff, that the tuba one is the biggest one.
Yeah, it actually is.
It's the main event. It's the main event. It's actually of the Navajo fairs.
It's actually the last main event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that what makes it bigger is the fact that you have a Hopi event
alongside with it,
that coincides with it, and that's the Tuvi Gathering.
Yeah, the Tuvi Gathering started up how long ago? Like almost 20 years ago.
I have absolutely no idea.
Almost around 20 years ago. Yeah, something like that. And it was just to coincide with the Tuba City Fair, and it was just because why have Navajos have their fair, their Yebiche dance. We want to have our Yebiche dance as well too. And so, and then so I guess that's the Tuvi Fair that got established there, and it was really I was there in the beginning as well too when they very first started. Because we started up there when there was no hotel. The hotel was being built still.
Okay,
and I believe that they wanted to start it then. Because I think it was usually in the village. Yeah, because they usually had it in the village, I believe so.
Well, what I heard was that when the Tuvi Gathering started, it started at somebody's home.
Yeah,
and I believe that the home was in one of those HUD housings.
In
the upper village.
Yeah,
I think that's where it started, and it became an annual thing. They probably just started with a few dance groups.
Yeah,
and then it grew into this huge thing.
And because I remember because Soul used to go sell her beaky up there.
Okay.
And we used to have fresh corn and string beans, and we used to sell, and nobody said anything. We didn't have to have a permit. We didn't have to have any. We just parked our truck.
You didn't have to pay that $800.
Yeah, we didn't have to pay that $800
food sale.
There. No, nobody.
Food seller's fee. And you have to pay.
And it was
days.
the very first time because I remember I was directing traffic out from that little road that went into the main road. And I remember that.
What happens at a Tuvi Gathering?
Well,
for those that have never been.
Okay, Tuvi Gathering is another place for women to shake their booties and get money for it. So.
And so they have this big area for
dances and stuff
all
like
kinds
that.
of dance groups,
and
lots of dance groups. In addition to this, there's also a lot of people that sell. What do they sell?
They sell jewelry. They sell rattles. They sell hip hop items. Hip hop albums.
I remember one year that they had those Navajo models walking around.
Oh the calendar,
women of the Navajo,
the calendar ones. I bought like 12 of them. I bought like 12 of them. I had them all sign it and stuff like that. And what was her name? Remember that singer girl? What was her name? She's pretty big too.
She's a famous singer?
She's a famous Navajo singer,
Maya?
Baya. No, what was her name? Oh my God. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't.
Turquoise Rose.
No. She was there. She was selling her CDs as well too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
One year. And, I got excited. I bought 12 albums as well too. So
everybody got those albums.
Everybody got Christmas, signed copies of a known artist.
The little kids got Women of the Navajo Nation calendars in their stockings for Christmas that year.
Exactly. So, it's so fun at the Tuvi Gathering. It's so much fun, and
you see a lot of people,
and you see a lot of people.
Local to just Tuba and Hopi, like everybody from everywhere comes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Navajos from all corners of the reservation come. Hopis, even from the city. They all come out.
Zunis, you have
Navajos,
Zunis,
Pueblos,
you have
a lot of Pueblo people
Lagunas
that come out to sell
their jewelry and to watch the dances out there. And I remember one year there were over like almost 20 groups.
Oh wow,
20 groups were
20 dance groups. And you're gonna have a dance.
And
group
I'm gonna have a dance group this year. So
you're dancing with the Yebiches?
I'm the lead Yebiche. The talking god.
Well, I think now's a good time to bring on our special guest.
Yeah,
hopefully he's still around.
Yeah, let's go ahead and see if he's around here.
Since we tortured him for hearing us BS.
Hirsch, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. I feel like I just want to leave now after all that shit you guys are talking. You can edit this part out, though.
And so we'd like to welcome back to the podcast for the third time, I believe, our good buddy Herschel Clark. And so, Hirsch, you've been with us on here before, and so if you want to give a quick introduction.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Herschel Clark, like what Suta mentioned. I am the third time here on the pod, so it's good to hear everybody. It's good to hear Carl, especially Carl. We miss Carl. Sometimes you guys been on break for a while, so it's good to hear you guys' voices, and you guys are out, doing, I don't know what season you guys are on, but I don't agree with some of the stuff that you guys were. There's like a long tangent of just comments about Navajo this, Navajo that, and a lot of it. I don't even know what you guys were talking about. but yeah, I know you can edit this out. But yeah. Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to talking about Navajo fairs, Navajo culture. Whatever it is that we talk about, Navajo relations between Navajo and Hopis. I think that's something that Suta and Carl wanted to talk to me about. I think this is something. I wish we could talk on our pod. I am part of your auntie's favorite podcast.
Oh, you're on a podcast, Hirsch. I didn't know that.
Yes, for some of the listeners, I know some of you guys do listen to us. We do have a podcast, and we're going to hit 100,000 downloads here in a bit. We do have a good following. We are the number one podcast out here in the Southwest for Indian country. So if you guys haven't listened to us, I suggest don't listen to us. I don't promote my pod, but I'm just giving you guys a little bit background who I am.
Why didn't you tell me you were on a podcast, Hirsch? We could have promoted you. God knows you could have used the help.
No, we don't want to be promoted. That's why we don't tell anybody.
Hirsch
We're underground. We keep it that way.
Hirsch and his podcast. They're pretty good people. They have their own style of podcasting, and yes, sometimes it's toxic, sometimes it's deep thought, and sometimes
you know about this podcast.
I know about this podcast. Yeah, Hirsch is my best friend.
Tell me about this. Podcast.
You're late.
I never heard of this podcast before, but Hirsch, I'm glad that you're here because then I really did want to give you a platform to talk about some of this stuff, as you mentioned before, that you don't have a chance to really talk about, I guess, culturally related stuff as it involves your culture, because I think some of the listeners know that you and we've known each other since our college days back at Arizona State University. And there, you and we engaged in hours and hours of dialogue with other folks that were in our program, just talking about a lot of cultural stuff and a lot of the stuff that we learned through AIS and how that applies back here on the reservation. And so I know you got a lot of good ideas. I know that you got a lot of good points. But as Carl and I were just talking about the Western Navajo Fair, can you tell us more about the fairs and like how big that is for Navajo? And I guess really, it's probably a huge thing for the Navajo economy as well.
Yeah, thanks. I think you guys were talking about earlier, you guys talked about a little bit of background about the fairs and where it started from. So coming from an AIS perspective, it's always good to give a little bit of background, historical concepts behind, what topics we're talking about. But I think for the fairs, if you go back in history, just a little bit, the 1930s was actually when, the fairs were actually promoted by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. A lot of people don't understand that. This was actually after the Navajo livestock reduction of 1930. When they went in there and basically took out, at least 1/3 or 2/3 of our livestock on the Navajo Nation, and the BIA, the government, they wanted to see how can they have better relations with the Navajo Nation government or Navajo Nation people, the community, after, killing like half of their damn livestock. Like,
let's throw them a Ferris wheel.
So, in all fairness.
But, did you know that? I didn't know that.
What's that?
I didn't know that that's how the fair started.
I didn't know that either.
From the federal government.
I just always thought that, they were copycats of the Arizona State Fair. I always thought that.
But, the thing that Herschel mentioned, the livestock reduction, that Hopi was also a part of that as well.
Yeah,
that a lot of Hopi, a lot of their livestock, their sheep, a lot of the different cattle that they had was also taken away as well. And,
But we weren't given any fairs.
We weren't given any fair. Nobody gave us a fair.
Nobody gave us a fair for that.
What the hell?
I know. We should talk to the government about this thing.
We want a fair.
We want a fair,
Oh, the history. Okay, yeah. So the livestock reduction of 1930, basically, that's where the spark of the Navajo Nation Fairs was actually promoted and actually established by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Actually promoted that to the Navajo Nation Tribal Council and to our people. I think the first one that they had was in Winter Rock in the 1936. Don't quote me on that. 1940, they actually had the first Navajo Nation Fair there, and it wasn't until the 1940s the Navajo Nation Council actually adopted the essence of a Navajo Nation Fair, where, basically it's just an opportunity for education and, bring economic development or economic opportunities such as livestock, corn, different harvesting, different things that they could come together from different parts of the regions. That's how I understand the original establishment of our fairs. And from there it just bloomed. And, now we have over, I think 7 fairs throughout the Navajo Nation. I think you guys mentioned quite a few of them.
Yeah.
So that's basically the background of. Basically, it's an economic opportunity after the livestock reduction, and something that came from the outsiders. I never really understood. I always thought it came from our ceremonies, our harvesting and stuff like that. But I guess it's intertwined altogether if you really think about it.
With the government taking away the livelihood and then giving you churros and cheap plushie toys, right?
Basically, giving us. Yeah, I don't know. I think
Hirsch, can you describe how, I guess, for folks, Navajos, I guess, basically, how excited do people get for the fairs?
Yeah.
Is this something that's circled on the calendar and something that you look forward to all throughout the year?
It depends. I think it depends for every family in every region part, whatever. To me, it's for my family, we've always been into food sales, developing food stands. So it was an opportunity for us to make a few bucks here and there to pay some of our bills. That's kind of how our family looked at fairs. If you guys know, some of my family members, they sell kettle corn. Our family's been in the kettle corn business for almost 20 plus years, and we do quite well with that. So we always looked forward to these fairs, and you can make a good amount of money, to be honest. A couple of $1,000s, you would say, at these fairs. So for my family, we looked at it like that. I never enjoyed the fairs how other families enjoyed it. Going to the fair, to the carnival. That was just never, me growing up. It was a treat if I did go to the fairgrounds. Because I grew up poor. I grew up in a different way. And, the fairs, the parades was something cool, getting candy and whatnot. But, I think from every family, it's different on the Navajo Nation. I think everybody has a different idea. There's people who are there for opportunities for making a couple bucks, selling at food vendors. There's other families that are well off and they enjoy the fair. So it just depends. And there's political season as well. You'll see this past year. This year is what I understand from our fairs was from my family. They told me that the Navajo Nation Fair was just the parade was just basically a political parade. You'll have, people from congressional leaders, state senators, even our tribal election leaders and our president and our vice president. That's basically who all took over the whole Winter Rock parade. And you guys will probably see that there in Tuba City as well. So it depends on what family you come from. I think we all have a different ties to how we look at fairs. For me, it's I never got to enjoy the carnival.
So Hirsch, I take it that then you're not camped out on the parade route the night before trying to get your good parade spot?
Nope. We're more trying to camp out, trying to find a good vending spot.
Real quick, Carl. And so, the fair is such a huge social gathering as well that, outside of just people wanting to go to ride rides or going to go see all of the elected or trying to get elected officials in the parade, trying to promote their cause, that, you know, a lot of the times that people are going there to look to hook up. I heard a very disturbing statistic in that in Tuba City,
gotta try that
when the fair rolls around, that the STD rates
go
skyrocket. And that's what the fair brings into town.
Really? I never knew that.
You being a public health guy, is that something that you're aware of as well?
No, I don't promote that kind of negativity towards my fairs.
It's like, don't come over here.
No, just like any.
You're gonna itch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it came from. I'm pretty sure that came from Lower Montgomery, from my understanding.
Hey. We keep it tradition down there.
Yeah. Well, no.
Lambskin.
Lambskin.
Yeah.
They don't itch as much.
Well, okay. As a public health advocate and profession, I guess I do need to speak on this. Yeah, syphilis is a huge breakout right now in the western part of Southern Navajo Nation. It includes Montgomery and Upper Montgomery and Lower Montgomery.
Oh, really?
Include them.
God damn! Thank God I'm married.
Yeah, you guys. It's just that you guys don't. You guys don't have enough data. You guys don't capture those numbers. But I'm pretty sure you guys have high. Just based from people I know from your guys' village, I'm pretty sure.
All right, Carl. Well, you better be safe out there. You're the single man.
Hook up over there and go itch. So Hirsch.
Oh no, Carl. Don't be afraid of it. Syphilis is curable.
Oh, okay. All right.
Think about
it's curable.
Don't worry about
curable.
Don't worry about it, Carl. Nothing a shot of penicillin can't cure.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah. You just gotta catch it early, and you'll be okay.
That's how kings died back in the ancient Egypt times. They didn't catch it in time. But okay.
Go ahead,
but before I got interrupted, I wanted to ask, which is your favorite fair of them all? Like,
that's a good question.
Yeah, like which one is your best fair? Like, is it Window Rock, or is it Tuba, or is it?
Because I know you're not particularly fond of Tuba, Hirsch. But you better speak the truth.
No, if I'm gonna look at it from snagging point of view,
which one has the better ladies, Hirsch?
I think Window Rock does, to be honest.
Oh, really?
If I'm really gonna be honest. I think Window Rock has the best fair because it's the biggest one, and the fair, the parade's the biggest.
Yeah.
But then also you got to understand Shiprock Fair. So Shiprock's the number one. Like the original fairs did originate from from Window Rock, like from the BIA coming together. But the original fair of Tuba, from what I understand, Shiprock is the oldest fair, meaning they've always had events and thermal activities and things that happen up in Shiprock. So I think they're like on their 110th anniversary. Don't quote me on that, but it's over 100 years. Compared to Window Rock. So I would say Shiprock is probably
110 years of having, I would say, syphilis Shiprock and itchiness.
I don't know if we had syphilis back in the day. Dang. That's a good question. But no, I think Shiprock's probably the best one because I think we always looked up to the harvest season. If you guys know that, Shiprock is part of our, if you look at the San Juan River, a lot of those, there's a lot of corn, there's a lot of harvest.
Yeah, you got that huge ass pumpkin field out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Before Nappy too. I mean, Nappy is just something that we economically. I don't care. I'm not a really huge supporter of Nappy. I'm more of a supporter of the local harvesters, and they need to get their shit together. Sorry, but no, I think that's what Navajos really look forward to is the Shiprock Fair because it's time. Yeah.
So I think it just kind of depends on like the region as well too, because like a lot of Navajos will look forward to the Tuba City Fair because alongside with it they have the Hopi Fair and there's more vendors and there's more like food to go around with and there's more like a diversity. I was going to say diversity. And so I think that, in my opinion, like the Tuba City Fair is like one of the...
In my unbiased opinion. Which is very biased. Because then I don't have to drive anywhere when it comes to the Tuba Fair.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Time out. Wait, Hopi has a fair? Are you guys calling Tuvi a fair now? Is that what
Carl is? He's lobbying for
I'm lobbying for a Ferris wheel
to be at the Tuvi gatherings.
Yeah. I want to have a fair.
But Hirsch, before we talk the whole episode about the fairs, I did want to bring you on to kind of have some meaningful conversations, because you and we ran into each other very recently, and then we had a pretty good conversation kind of talking about some dynamics that as far as these big ideas that are developed in the city, and then when they're trying to be transferred over onto the reservation, that sometimes they're not welcomed so well. And when Carl and I did first start this podcast, that we had this huge 2-episode discussion about reservation culture, but that was coming specifically from a Hopi standpoint. And so the question that I wanted to ask you, Hirsch, and I know that, you kind of mentioned it, that you grew up poor. What's the reservation culture like for Navajos?
Oh, man. Like I mentioned, we're very complex. We're very unique. I wouldn't say, what did Carl say? I don't know what you said, kind of weird. I don't know, you call it something, but we're very complex and unique is what I always kind of look at our culture, because, we have traditionalists all the way to the middle, all the way to people who are progressive that are very more into like city folks, kind of like my pod friends. that I have, like Delmore Nathan. Good examples, yeah. They're very immersed into the Western ways of thinking, their ideas, and thinking of how you could bring that home. And I think just kind of answering your question, I think when outsiders like we get educated, right? We come back home, we come back to the Navajo Nation or to your reservations or to your tribe, thinking that we're going to implement these ideas or develop these kind of projects or things that we could do to help our communities. But I think when we come to these communities, that we don't understand that there's a lack of resources and education even to like start developing or start to even implement these ideas into our communities. A basic example is like we don't even have basic infrastructure development for running water, electricity, or even access to food. So how are we going to accommodate these kind of modern ways of thinking when we don't understand our own communities because we've been so far away from home? I think that's what I experienced coming back home. Like I have all these ideas and thinking that I'm going to make a huge impact. And I think I came to a conclusion through the 8 years living back, from the city or being educated, that you got to pick where you're going to, I guess, concentrate. And mine's is just in the health field, like mine's tobacco control, prevention, education, that area, and really looking at cultural preservation. That's my interest. Economic development, all this other stuff, it's like that's not my area, so I'll leave that up to other people. But I think it's just understanding the infrastructure and the system that you're going to be working with, and really realizing if it's realistic, if we're going to be able to develop those ideas into our communities. But I think it's just a lack of understanding of what it is that we're trying to do. Like internet access right now is something huge. And a lot of our people say, oh, we need this. But then do we even have the infrastructure to develop those kind of internet access for our people? I don't know if that answers your question.
It does kind of answer that question. And I know that you're you're the traditional man, right? You're a traditional Navajo man. Who believes in the medicine man, like the Yebiche dances, the healing ceremonies and stuff like that. And
you wear
bolo ties at council meetings,
Bolo ties.
You wear a little thing of tetadine around your neck and sprinkle some Safeway pathways in front of you as you walk.
Yeah, I guess so. And then I also keep my arrowhead close to me, especially when I go near Hopis. So when I'm over here at Tubi, I have four big old arrowheads in my pocket.
And Hirsch, can you speak to that a little bit more as far as the diversity on Navajo? Because, when Carl and we talk a whole lot about the different types of population out here on Hopi, but for the most part, a lot of us, kind of believe in this Hopi way of life, that you are starting to see a little bit bigger population of Christian Hopis that are starting to develop. But I know, growing up in Tuba, that Navajos are much different. And you mentioned that, there's this kind of A through Z classification of different types of Navajos. But can you speak to that a little bit more?
Man, I don't know where to start without even hurting people's feelings.
Start.
I think that with Navajos and Hopis, we've always been hurting each other's feelings. So.
Well, because you got LDS Navajos, you got Christian Navajos, you got powwow Navajos, you got what was that?
The powwow,
the Native American Church Navajos.
I never knew that. Yeah,
like you mentioned, I mean, there's just a very diverse. I mean, we're just so diverse, and I don't think that as a flaw. I think that is something unique, and it could strengthen who we are as a Navajo people. And comparing us to like other tribes, maybe they say, oh, like Hopi, you guys are very, very traditional, and you guys don't really immerse into like Western ideals of understanding. But I think from our understanding of like just our history and our experience and what we look at, the knowledge of us understanding Western, the Laganas, Bahanas, that ideology, that knowledge is very powerful. It could help us support and I guess it could be bad and good in a sense. And from my understanding, from growing up and also going to school at Tenet College, like the way I was taught was that that Western. I think I said this on your last pod that Western knowledge is something to use to protect your people and in your culture and your identity. That's the essence of what you're protecting, such as like land or resources or just your language or, stuff that you need to protect yourself from the outside, infringement on your people. And you guys talked about the Treaty of 1868. I would encourage you, Suta, to tell your kids that the only reason why we have a Treaty of 1868 and you guys don't have one is because we fought the Mexicans, we fought the Spanish, and we took on the United States. But what you forgot to mention is that we never signed that Guadalupe Treaty. So it's a difference. That's like we were still fighting for our land and fighting for our people. Where you guys already gave in, Hopis already gave in and said, okay, we're gonna accept the Mexicans, and we have a treaty with them. That's why the United States respected that treaty with you guys, and you guys were basically their allies.
The Navajos probably weren't in the area yet, Herschel, when this Guadalupe Treaty was probably signed. So that's probably why you guys never signed that treaty.
Well,
no, we were there. We were there when a public revolt, when your people came in. When Spanish came, we took all your elders and your spiritual leaders on the ground, and we protected them. Remember that.
So
I hope you don't edit that part out. We can have a better conversation on that. That I know a lot of stories on that. So
okay. So going back to like the traditional part of it, like because we as Hopis have like like the church goers and stuff like that, and they don't really follow in with like the traditional Hopi manner thing, and we kind of get like
they do, Carl. They pray to Jesus Sunday morning and then they go home the Sunday afternoon. So that's another episode.
And that's another episode. So but like like with us, we kind of see that as like you gave up on your culture and you're going towards another culture. Do you see that kind of in the Navajo tradition as well too? Like, why not follow the traditional Navajo
the
culture,
changing woman way.
Yeah, like like the whole structure like that, rather than going like to the church way and then integrating that as well too. Do you kind of get upset with that as well, or do you just kind of just like say, oh yeah, that's just part of Navajo culture now?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, because I think from like coming out of AIS, coming out of being educated, coming back home, you have that kind of you're strong-minded on your opinions, but when you get into the communities, you see that we're very diverse. We're very, like, you can't just tell it from a traditional point of view, try to tell a Christian person how to live. But I think from my experience, it's like it's a process, and I think it's bringing that like if you're going to use decolonization and then reclaiming who we are, and I think it's a process to educate this generation, because we have a generation like trauma are people who are stuck in that kind of a tradition or Christian mindset, and it's not their fault. It's not their parents' fault. Maybe it's really, I guess it's a process. It's educating our kids at a young age, and educating our education system or the Navajo Nation could take control of that and really educating us, because I think it's going to be a process of generation to get away from I don't know where I'm going. There's like decolonization process. Like, it's a process. again, I keep saying process because I think from us as AIS, we don't understand that process yet because we're still trying to develop that and seeing what's the best evidence-based, scenario for us to reclaim who we are and our identity. And I think it's just educating this generation that, because I have friends that are really hardcore Christians in LDS and they're just so stuck in it because that's their parents that taught them. They really stuck that and brainwashed them, basically, is what I see. But it's not their fault. So I don't know how better way to do it is just get the next generation when they have kids, making sure that their kids have the opportunity to understand the history, understand, what happened, and understand that they have a choice to either they're going to choose traditional or they're going to choose Christianity. But I think it's also educating the Christianity group too, as well. It's like what they've done historically is brainwashed their kids where they literally told our kids that, hey, these ceremonies are bad, they're evil, don't participate in it. And there's some denominations that, tell our kids not even to wear the jewelry. Saying turquoise is evil, silver is evil. Like that kind of a teachings that it's really being taught in these, like I have experience going to a Christian school because I used to go to Bible school here in Winslow and on a denomination just because I used to try to get cookies and snacks, that's kind of how they get these little kids. I think went to Bible school. I remember exactly what the Bible teacher was telling me. She was literally telling
looks like we lost Hirsch again. So, Hirsch, if you can hear this, we lost you.
But there was a question that I was going to ask him with the Navajos being so diverse. Like, so many different Navajos that believe in different things. Yeah. Like, does that create classism within your community? Because then, I was thinking about it. Is there a classism here on Hopi? I feel like not really, because then I feel like we're all poor. like there's no such thing as like a rich Hopi. You know what I mean? Like there's no Scottsdale of Hopi. Like there's no neighborhoods that you think of, that's where the rich Hopis live. Like there's we don't have that. Yeah. The closest thing is probably like the new buildings that the IHS built for their employees, and that's down in First Mesa.
We can kind of,
and that's like that's kind of like a 2-3 year old building, and so that was kind of an interesting thing.
UPS can finally find their houses,
and I guess really because where I was trying to get to with that, hopefully Hirsch gets back to us, because then he'd be the one to ask this question. Is that at least from growing up with the Navajos, what I've seen is that you do have a group of Navajos that act real queevy, like real queevy, like all the way from how they dress. They have to wear like real nice clothes. They do their best to have really nice vehicles. And then they kind of look down upon their own people. Yeah. Like there's this term, and I've heard that it's kind of a derogatory term, but this word Johns. There's this as classification of Navajos that are called Johns. And I guess basically what Johns are is that, the real heavy accent. They have the real heavy Navajo accent, and, they talk in a certain way. And then also too, I guess they kind of live life a certain way too. And I guess really in from an external perspective, and hopefully Hirsch gets back and he can tell us a little bit more about this, but at least as far as this classification of Johns, to me, I feel like that they kind of live a little bit more with the land, I guess, in a way, like maybe still have hogans around and still like herd sheep, things like that. Like still kind of doing the more cultural, I guess, bus Navajo stuff.
That I think I see that as more like the Navajo culture, like the Navajo tradition. Mm-hmm. And, like all the other Navajos, like, the LDS, the Powwow Highway Navajo, all those other, those aren't the traditional traditional Navajos. Those are like, like a subculture of that. Like, how you have like a subculture or like sub music, like sub genres of music.
Like, hip hop.
Yeah.
And then there's different versions of
R&B,
underground.
And I think that's how I kind of see Navajo culture in a way, because of the way that they kind of portray themselves, like a lot of the Navajos, they don't really go to like these traditional like Nebiche dances or medicine men. They rather go to Western culture type of deals like that, and
they'd rather go to the Nelly concert.
Yeah,
than the Yebiche.
Yeah, exactly. And
they'd rather go to the drag queen show than to the
Exactly. And I see that. I see that in a way where it's like they gave up their traditions, like their actual traditions. And when Hirsch gets back, I want to ask him, is Navajo tradition dead? Like the real traditional part of it dead? It's kind of appalled to me, like, that we as Hopis, like, we have our structure, we have our traditions, we have our culture, and we have a set calendar that we follow through. Like, even though that we're not initiated into a lot of these, traditional stuff that's on the Hopi reservation, we still have this notion that this is still deep to us. Like, this is still, very traditional to us. And we honor that. We honor that whole thing like that. And so I want to ask Hirsch whenever he gets back, is that, is that sort of traditional part, that sort of traditional side dead? Is that gone, or is that, because
is it trying to be revived?
Yeah, is it trying to be revived? I know,
it thriving somewhere?
Yeah. Because
then I think a part of what you're talking about is the language as well.
Yeah.
And even though we have our issues with the Navajos, that when I do go places, like you go into a Bashis, you hear two Navajos speaking Navajo to each other. Like, I enjoy hearing it.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoy hearing that their language is still being spoken by quite a bit of folks. So I guess the question would be, are the younger ones learning it? And if they're not, then what's the reason? I imagine that a lot of it has to do with some of the same reasons as to why Hopis don't learn it. But I think basically what Hirsch was talking about, as far as how diverse that their group is, that it tends to, a lot of those external influences tend to be the reason why the culture is not continuing. As he mentioned before, that you have folks that are LDS, or you have folks that are a part of the Christian church. And like, you go to Tuba, like if you drive through Tuba, like you find there's a Jehovah's Witness section of Christianity out there. There's the Church of Latter-day Saints section of Christianity out there, that there's just so much different versions of Christian churches that exist just in Tuba. And so you can imagine what it's like throughout other parts of Navajo. And, like you kind of mentioned to it, is that, or Hirsch is the one that mentioned that, is that really a bad thing, or is that just a part of Navajo culture now?
So, Hirsch, are you back online?
Yeah, I'm back on. I don't know where I got cut off.
So Hirsch, this was the question that I had before you got cut off, because you talked about the diversity of Navajo. Because Navajo is so diverse, then does that develop this classism within Navajo? Because then I just mentioned that, growing up amongst Navajos, that I've noticed that there are some Navajos that are real, in Hopi we say Cuivi, that means
like prissy, or like
bougie.
Yeah.
And I tend to notice that those Navajos tend to look down upon the and I kind of said that I've heard that this is a derogatory term, but like the Johns, the Navajo Johns. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Hirsch?
And then maybe a two-parter question too, is that along the sidelines of that as well too, is that we see that the culture in Navajo, that they're like, again, like we were saying, like there was such a diverse culture and such a complex culture. Being as like a traditional Navajo man, I don't see that as like in all of like Navajo sense. So is like the traditional part of Navajo dying, or is it dead, or is it like living in hogans, or like tending to their sheep, like going to medicine men and all of that, all of those things that make up like the Navajo culture. Do you see that as being like a dead culture now, or is it a dying culture?
Well, why didn't you let him answer my question?
It's a two-part question.
You asked him your question.
It's a two-part question.
He probably completely forgot what my question was.
You said John's.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, those are both kind of complex questions, but I guess I could be the token Navajo and just speak on it, I guess.
Yeah.
You're speaking for all Navajos now, Hirsch.
Oh, okay. What I meant, I said, hey, good afternoon, my relatives and my friends and my people. I'm just kidding. But no, I think, I don't know where I was. Did I answer the last question? I don't know where I'm at, because I was going off on a huge story that I was sharing about Christianity and my experience with Christianity. I don't know if that got recorded or if you guys got to listen to that.
The question, Hirsch, was, is there develop a classism within Navajo culture because of the diversity?
Yeah, the first part.
So, yeah, I guess to answer your question, the classification of Navajos, I mean, is it a threat to our culture? Is it a threat to our tradition? I think when you're talking about from a culture point of view, I think culture is always going to change and adapt to us, moving forward in the history. I mean, in the future, culture always does adapt, but I think tradition doesn't. And I think that's the difference between the way we understand, our tradition and our concepts of like our songs, our prayers, our ceremonies. And to us, that's tradition. And I think the same concepts with Hopi, like you don't change tradition. And I think one of the good concepts that, like an example that we talked about in our pod, it's like, do we change how we look at marriage between a man and a woman? That's a unique example in the sense of what we're going through. That we don't change that tradition between a man and a woman. That's been given to us through our holy people, through our creators, and there's essence and stories and meaning behind that. Where now this new contemporary culture, these new ideas are coming to our people that they want to entertain the idea that man and man could be married, or woman and woman could be married. So that has never been part of our tradition, and that's something that we will never change. And I think from our culture, but other people may try to adapt it, but I don't think our holy people will recognize it. And that's just kind of how I look at it. So those traditions will never change, but culture eventually will adapt. I mean,
so you won't be attending the drag show then, Hirsch?
I was going to say something about that too.
It depends if it's like all women drag.
All women drag. I don't think you have the full concept of what drag means. We'll be in drag, so.
I don't.
No, okay. So second part to the question before we run out of time here is that do you think the traditional part of Navajo is dead or is it's dying? Like the medicine men, the hogans, the sheep, the living by the changing woman ways,
the yebiches,
like all of those things. Do you think that it's a dying culture like that, or do you think
the string games?
Yeah, or do you think that it's a dead culture?
The shoe game.
To answer your question, no, I don't think so, because there's like I said, there's a huge. Like, it's very diverse, but if you really dissect it, I think there's our traditions, our ceremonies are still being going on to this day. Like our yebiches, or all these types of ceremonies are still living and still being practiced and still being taught in our communities. But there's also these, I guess, our modern ways of looking at what's influencing us is there too as well. But if you go into our communities, I think the essence of our traditional people are still there. I mean, thinking about the decline of traditional practitioners, I could see that definitely. But I don't think it's dying. I think we have a lot of traditional people. And like I mentioned in the last pod, I think we have over 400,000 people. And I'm estimating at least 150,000 of our Navajo people are traditionalists in some sense and do practice and do understand it. So in the teachings, the language is strong too as well. And I think it's just revitalizing those and being able to continue those teachings. But I don't think it's going to die. I think it's a different, I guess it's a different generation that we're going to go through this phase, of course. But I think the long term, maybe my great grandkids will be able to speak fluently again Navajo. That's from my family, but there's other families that still speak the Navajo language fluently and still participate in ceremonies. I mean, there's some really traditional ones that are really traditional as well. Compared to me, I would consider myself in the middle. I do go to ceremonies, but I also participate in Western ways of living and enjoy both worlds in some sense. But I think it's just we're in a time frame, and what I'm hoping and praying that someday that we'll be back, prior to European contact, when Europeans and white people go to Mars or some shit. I don't know where they're going to go. That our people will be able to read these teachings and be indigenous to the land and indigenous to our culture and indigenous to our ceremonies and our traditions. And I think those ceremonies and our language is what's going to keep us connected to staying here on Mother Earth instead of going out into space. That's kind of how I look at it. I don't know if it's too wide out there thinking about it, but I don't know. Do you guys believe in aliens?
We believe in,
I believe.
Yeah, we believe in that.
The Marvel stuff, Guardians of the Galaxy, Skrulls, and all that stuff.
But yeah, running out of time here, and I'm pretty sure that
probably
this
should be a two-part.
Yeah, this is
episode.
a huge two-parter episode because I'm pretty sure that a lot of Navajos are wanting to hear a lot more about their side and hopefully, yeah, exactly. So, again, thank you for joining us on this nice, lovely
Since it
day
sounds
here.
like the podcast that you're a part of, Hirsch, isn't very cultured, so.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could do a different recording where like I could get these questions ahead of time and prep for them because you guys probably prepped for your speaking. I don't know.
I didn't even know we were talking about this thing till this morning.
He actually got more heads up than you got more heads up than he did.
Yeah, I actually just got this during 10 o'clock this morning,
seconds before he pressed record.
Yeah, yeah, he just gave me the paper.
I mean, I just looked at it, but I didn't get to really read the questions until we got on the pod. To be honest, when you guys were doing the introduction, that's when I started reading it.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I could answer. Yeah. Like I would like to talk a little bit more about the Navajo relationship. Like, how can we build on modern ways of looking at us going forward, despite the land dispute issue that happened?
For
really
sure.
Cool ideas and
for sure.
topics on that.
Well, we'll have to bring you back, Hirsch, and hopefully we'll get a better connection because we lost you a couple of times.
Yeah.
But is there anything you'd like to say to our listeners before we get out for this episode?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, thank you, Carl. Thank you, Susu, for inviting me. And I just wanted you guys to enjoy the Navajo Fair. It's not a Navajo. It's not Hopi Fair, Carl. And until you guys establish an actual Hopi from your Hopi council or from your lower Mokopi or upper Mokopi council or your Kiva, recognizing that you guys have a fair, then maybe I would consider that. But enjoy it. I mean, I really do enjoy going to Tuvi. I think you guys, having you guys side to it as well does bring that better fair to Tuba City Fair.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
Think about it, like it'd be really nice to have Shiprock unite with the youth, but we're not in good relations with the youth. Or we're actually enemies of the youth. But I think we have a better relationship with Hopi.
Are you guys friends with any tribe, Hirsch? No, I'm just kidding.
All right. Well, Hirsch, thank you again for joining us, for Carl and Jman and talking about your side here. And we really enjoyed it. We really enjoyed making fun of you and you making fun of us as well.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the Upper Village is pretty close to bringing in a Ferris wheel when they have their butterfly dances.
Yeah, maybe.
They have a whole section kind of like how the Santo Domingos do their feast. So,
all right. Well, thank you, Hirsch, again. Thank you for joining us. So if you guys have listened to this, I mean, it's been an hour long, and I know you guys are excited to turn off that radio there.
So that you can get to the fair.
So you can get to the fair and whatnot. If you guys want to donate something, go to anchor.fm/CJ Podcast 85 to become a monthly donor. I mean, it gives you all of the perspectives that help us out, buy merchandise and to actually pay for some of our help here, because a lot of this podcasting stuff is, pretty expensive. And I never knew that. I thought it was just a microphone and you just hit play or record. So.
And if you're not following us on our social medias, you can find us at Carl and Jman on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And don't forget, too, that we're very close to doing another giveaway through our Instagram. So if you're not subscribed to us on that platform, please subscribe to us there. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to give us that 5-star review. That really helps us move up the charts. And I guess we'll see you next week.
All right. Well, you are listening to Carl and Jman Save the World podcast. My name is Carl, and this is my best friend, Jman.
And don't forget, Carl will be dressed in drag so long.
What? I want to be named Coco.